Hello and welcome to the South East Regional live event for the Count Me In campaign. We've got, my name's Ian Weller. I'm the chair of the BT committee for the South East region, and I'm also assistant branch secretary of the Portsmouth, West Sussex and Isle of Wight branch. We've got four speakers today. The main speaker is Davie Bowman. He is the national officer for Openreach for the CWU. We've also got Dave Booker from the Meridian branch. He's the secretary of the Meridian branch, and Dave Kaufman, who is chair of the South East Central branch. And we've also got James Nash, who is the youth officer of the Portsmouth, West Sussex and Isle of Wight branch. So what we're going to talk about today is why it's important that everybody sticks together in this campaign and delivers a massive yes vote in favour of industrial action, and why we need to support each other. So with that, I will introduce Davie Bowman, who will speak to you. So I'll hand over to Davie now.
Thanks, Ian, and good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's good to have another opportunity to talk to you about why this campaign is so important. Principally, I'll do it from an Openreach point of view, but much of what I say obviously applies across BT Group, Openreach and EE. So I think part of what we need to do is debunk some of the myths and legends that the company are ploughing at this point in time. And the first thing I'd want to say is it doesn't really matter whether you've been in the company 30 weeks, 30 months, 30 years. The impact of the changes that the company are trying to drive through will undoubtedly impact you at some point or other within your career. And it's important that we fight these changes now because it is about the future, and it's about the legacy that we as a collective leave. So from a practical point of view, and Openreach specific, doesn't matter whether you're a jointer, copper jointer, fibre jointer, doesn't matter whether cabler, whether you're CSE, whether you're pull tester, it doesn't matter, or whether you're in a desk function planner, allocator, whatever. It really doesn't matter, because the impact of the changes will affect us all. And I think what we need to think about is what's at stake. The first thing is the culture of the company. The second is the relationship that the company has with you as individuals, but just as importantly, the relationship that they have with us as a trade union. And the final thing is about your voice. You see, because what the company is trying to do at the moment is to sideline you as individuals and sideline the CWU, and you would then lose that voice to absolutely influence what happens going forward. Because all the things that you enjoy today, whether you've been in for a short period, medium or a long time, all those things are a legacy of scraps and fights and challenges that the union and its predecessors have had over the years to get us to the point we are now. We are highly unionised within BT, Openreach and EE. Not long ago we got recognition within EE, fundamental for those members within there. So we're highly unionised, we have been and continue to be and want to be highly influential. So this is as much about everybody continuing to enjoy the legacy that you have, but also be in a position where going forward, we as a collective and you as individuals can actually help build that legacy for the future for others. So, I mean, the issues that are at stake, first of all, the one that has to be mentioned, of course, is compulsory redundancies. And the reason why that is so important is because it fundamentally changes the nature and the relationship between you as an individual and the company with a trade union. And the reason for that is, if you think about all the things that we deal with on your behalf on a day-to-day basis and have done around reskilling, around retraining, around resourcing, redeployment, pay and pension protection, all those things that we ensure that regardless of what happens from a job point of view, so your job might change, the function might change, there's a secure future for you there by utilising the agreements we've got and utilising the processes that we've helped build within the company. When you move towards a compulsory redundancy situation, then all those things disappear because the company's not interested in reskilling or retraining you. They're not interested in giving you pay and pension protection and also moving you on to other roles and protecting your pay and your pension until such time as a role at your substantive grade. All those things disappear. And they've introduced new grades, they've introduced new pay points without the agreement with the CWU. And that again has an impact because if you're relatively new in the company or long in the tooth and what you want to do is move on and move in to another role, then that role and that grade should be agreed with the CWU to ensure that there's parity across the company and to ensure that the value you give to the company and the customer is recognised in the pay range or the pay point that you enjoy. And many of you out there might be thinking within Openreach, well, quite fancy field-based cord, clerk of works, maybe going into a desk role as a planner. But of course, because we've got all those unagreed pay points in there, you would be moving into a role at a pay point that's unagreed with the CWU. And clearly, from our perspective, that needs to stop and we need to rationalise what's there. Of course, location strategy is a huge, huge issue, regardless of which line of business that you are in, or CFU as they call them now, huge issue. Because from a London and the South East point of view, in effect, Openreach certainly are disappearing and the other CFUs are doing likewise. So fighting them with regard to the location strategy is really, really important. If we look back, and again, it's a legacy, if we look back a very short period, 4 or 5 years ago, when working together was at the height within Openreach, and what they wanted to reduce was reduced to 23 sites across the whole of the UK. We, through agreement and negotiation and argument and your help, drove that from 23 up to 32 and 4 retained sites. A retained site in Inverness, in Dundee, in Taunton and in Portsmouth. We won the argument to retain a site in Portsmouth because it wasn't one of the other 32 like Brighton, Southampton, etc. So we won the argument at that time. And another clear thing that we won, a clear gain for the union and for you, was that for anybody that couldn't move to one of those sites and travel in a reasonable time, and that's under the EDI process, which is an additional 45 minutes, for those individuals, the company would continue to take work to them. So do the maths. This is just Openreach, 32 sites, 4 retained sites. They want to go to 8. They say it's 9, but it's only 8 because Judge Street, which is Openreach headquarters in London, will not be an operational building. And anybody with dirty boots is not going to get their feet across the threshold of that particular building. So it's absolutely important that we win the argument around location strategy and get them back to their senses about what is possible. You know, a company that during the pandemic, across all the functions, has ensured that the country has remained connected by using the technology that they sell and build and maintain, to then say to the people who are building and maintaining and selling that somehow or other that technology can't be used so that you could either work more agilely by going into the office on occasions or to home work in order to be able to continue with your career with the company, instead of, back to step one, going to compulsory redundancies. And of course, there's the other issue around the reinstatement of the legally binding pension agreement, also really important. And finally, on why it matters right now, look at pay. You know, I think the communications that we put out to you were very clear in terms of, you know, our claim with the company was for a consolidated pay increase that was above inflation and that flowed through to obviously overtime pensions, etc. And what does the company do? Well, it gives you a £1,000, which can only be described as a bribe, in order to take your focus away from this campaign and in order to get you thinking about other things and to try and get you to believe that somehow or other the company cared about or cares about your contribution to date. And I have to say that was more than disappointing, wasn't it? Given the fact, you know, that last year all the comms, they imposed a pay deal and then said that it would happen, you know, this year it would be 1st of April. Again, that's not happening. These people are not to be believed. So the union's very clear about seeking to get you a consolidated increase, because that's really important for your future, for your pension, and therefore for your retirement. And one of the things that I think we find, you know, dealing with Openreach is a bit bit disappointing is if you think about the size of the BT workforce overall, and you look at the 30-odd thousand people that work within Openreach, then surely Clive Selly and surely Kevin Brady had a foot at that table to say, look, our people have done X, Y, and Z. The same as Nick Lane and Consumer and others in technology and elsewhere. A foot at the table to say, look, this has to stop. Why are we getting into a position where the union is going into dispute with you, Group, Openreach EE overall, when the reality of the situation is the impact that that will have on them. So if they've got a foot at the table and it hasn't changed, you have to ask yourself, then they either have no clout within that environment or they are complicit in the changes which are taking place. And if you think about the investment that Group is given to Openreach and what they're trying to draw in from government, you know, they are about to build and build and build at pace, principally using third party across the whole of the UK to build that fibre network. So at the point that that fibre network is built and the homes are passed and people start buying it, their argument will be, we have too many people, or we've got too many people and the work that we do have will continue to get done by third party. If we don't win this fight, and that'll come sooner than the next few, that'll come soon because of the way in which the network will be built, which will be in the cities and it will go through. So as that is built, if that's where you are, part of the fibre cities, that's where you are, the fibre network's built, copper begins to die off because they stop selling it and stop supporting it, then your role is going to be redundant potentially. And at that point, if we don't win this argument, then the company will move to use compulsion. And I can tell you from a desk point of view, we're getting very, very close to them using compulsion within Openreach for the first time in a number of the sites that we're currently dealing with. So all of you have done a fantastic job. So what do we need you to do? Because this is part of us talking about why we need to win the fight. I think everybody that's involved from headquarters to the regional representative to branch representative, everybody believes we can win this fight. But what do we need you to do? Well, what we need you to do is vote. And what we need you to do is vote yes. But what we also need you to do is agree to be an advocate, an ambassador, a point of contact, somebody that we can pick up the phone and get a bit of information to share with your colleagues, but also for you to give us the information back when things are happening on the ground, because that is going to be really important. Those of you listening tonight, talk to your colleagues. Tell them about the things that you've heard. Tell them about the questions you ask, because undoubtedly there'll be questions. Tell them about the questions you've asked and the answers that you've got that will give you the confidence that this is a fight that we can win. We will be sharing lots and lots of information via social media, and we would ask you to share that, but not just with your colleagues, but to the wider group of people that you know, because getting that information out there and getting that detail out there will help us win the fight, because the pressure will begin to go on the company. And the final thing would be, it's great that so many of you will have joined the call this evening. These will be happening more and more. We will be using the national Facebook lives for specific lines of business. We'll have the overall, you know, with Andy Kerr and Karen talking to you about how the campaign's going across the piece. And of course, there'll be the individual branch Zoom meetings in order that you can hear the latest of what's going on, get the information you need to go back and do the business. So in a very short period of time, what I've tried to do is give you an overview of where we are and why it's so important that you vote, and that you vote yes, and you talk to your colleagues, become a point of contact, and we can win this fight. And if we can win the fight, and when we win the fight, what will happen is you will be part of creating that legacy for yourself, because you will continue to enjoy the terms and conditions that are there and help us build to make that better. And you will leave when you decide to retire, go and do something else. You will leave all three companies, BT, Openreach, EE, in a state that means that the culture's better, the relationship's better, and the people who work for those companies have a voice. So please vote yes. Any questions you've got, get in touch, and we'll be more than happy to answer it. And with that, I'll hand over to Dave Booker, but I believe there'll be a short video played before that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Davie, and good evening, everyone. I should also like to say thank you to everyone that's tuned in tonight, and to all of you for your continuing support of your union in this campaign. In case you missed the beginning, the intros, my name's Dave Booker, and I'm the branch secretary for Meridian Branch and the regional coordinator for consumer sales and retention. The upcoming National Industrial Action Ballot is the first of its kind in my time in the company. I joined in 1989, so I missed the last national strike in 1987. And that is a long time to have had good industrial relations and meaningful dialogue that prevented us having to go down the route we're currently on. We're now at a crucial point, one where we need to stand firm and not waver from unity, one where we should brush aside any intimidation or underhand tactics. We need to continue working together to get the only result that can move us away from this race to the bottom we hear so much about. And many of you may be getting frustrated with the length of time it's taken to get to this point. Well, unfortunately, much of this is outside our control. The CWU needs to ensure it has made every effort in getting the correct information for its members. This is why we're continually having to contact you. It's a genuine reason why we're asking you to help validate our records. I mean, home address is vital. That is whether you yard at home park or whether you're a home worker. We have a legal obligation to get this right and avoid any challenges in court. We don't want, to lose out just because we haven't got the right information. So please, if you haven't responded or answered our call, do so as a matter of urgency. We're running out of time, and it's imperative we get this information. We need to keep the momentum going. I mean, following the marvellous result in the consultative ballot, we need to repeat this in the National Industrial Action Ballot. And it's kind of a two-pronged approach, if you like. If we achieve another excellent yes vote, it shows how deep the feeling is amongst you all regards the negative actions the company's have been taken, and just how far you're willing to go. But also, ironically, with a result like this, comes the only possible way of getting the company to listen to sense. And then ironically, as I say, could be what prevents having to take action if positive negotiations are the end result. So, but either way, the only possible vote to look after your terms and conditions and job security is yes. If you sit on your hands or vote no, then you give a green light to the company to do what they please, and that could mean you ultimately do yourself out of the job. People may be thinking, well, I can't afford to take action. Well, actually, you should be saying you can't afford not to take action. I'd rather a short-term loss with a long-term gain. I mean, that's surely preferable to more compulsory redundancies and site closures. With site strategy in mind, I'd like to say to our consumer members that we've heard there may be an announcement on sites in the next couple of weeks. I mean, who knows how that will go. I also urge you in consumer to complete the smart working surveys, please. You have until tomorrow, I believe. Also in consumer, we have a lot of people still home working following the COVID outbreak. Now, don't let yourselves become isolated. We're all one union, and management may feel it's going to be easy to persuade you to continue as you are if you enter industrial action, as you won't have to cross a physical picket line. But remember, it's still your job at risk, so don't allow yourself to be picked off. You're not alone. Stay united. I saw a quote a while back that fits nicely to this campaign. It was, "A river cuts through rock, not because of its power, but because of its persistence." Let's be the river. Let's continue campaigning, be persistent, and together let's cut through the rock that is BT. I'm going to end there, and we're going to go to another video. After the video, we'll hand over to Dave Bowman from South East Central Branch, and who's also our regional coordinator for Openreach. This video is about working together, and right at the beginning, you'll see the person on their own taking a lot longer to reach their goal than the team. So thanks for listening, and run the video. Cheers.
Rhythm. Rhythm.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dave Kaufman, the Regional Coordinator for the South East for Openreach and the Branch Chairman for South East Central Branch. And I've been invited on here to talk to a few of you today about some of the issues that are facing the field engineers predominantly. It's already been touched on around some of the desk-based people. I'm not going to labour on that too much, but compulsory redundancy is facing them. And it's going to come sooner rather than later for the South East, because there will be no desk-based jobs in London and the South East once Openreach push through their changes. But having been out recently and done a few meetings in car parks with some engineers, some of the questions that have come up, I just wanted to debunk with you. And the first one, I think, really is about what's the vote about. And to start with, I have to say the vote is not about whether we accept the £1,000 bung that BT and Openreach want to throw at us. As far as the CWU are concerned, the £1,000 is what you deserve for working through the pandemic last year. And let's face it, we deserve a percentage increased pay rise that's consolidated in our pay and our pensions for years to come. In actual fact, it's CWU policy to target the TM&E contracts and the 10% on target bonus they've got built within their pay and contracts. It's part of the CWU policy to try and get that pay consolidated into people's actual pay. And nationally, they've asked Openreach to do this on a number of occasions, and Openreach so far have rejected the call to consolidate that 10% on target bonus into your pay. And there has to be a reason for that. There has to be a reason why they don't want to consolidate that when they're paying it in full already. Think about it yourselves. It doesn't take a lot to draw a line between the latest service delivery unagreed incentive scheme that's been put in and the fact that they don't want to include the 10% on target pay bonus that's within the TM&E contracts into your pay. So just take a moment to think how things affect you. Like other people have said on this call already, it's only by standing together are we strong enough to beat the changes that come forward. If I get one step back and have a look at the TM&E contract that was initially proposed in 2014, it was for a £19,000 maximum engineer with a 20% on target bonus. It was for a 40-hour week. It was for overtime at 1.25 normal rate and an annual leave of a maximum of 28 days. The CWU have managed to push that to a starting salary of £21,827 plus 10% on target bonus. And that's now sitting at, once you've completed your MVQ, at 25,775. And with the pay awards going on forward since 2014, that's going to go up. And they said, and they debunked the hours from a 40-hour week to a 37.5-hour week. Overtime went to 1.5 at normal rate, and annual leave went to 30 days. So the CWU managed to push back on the company's proposed terms in 2014 on the TM&E contract to get a better deal for people. And that's what we're doing now. We're not trying to force anybody down a particular path. We're here to try and protect people's terms and conditions. And the TM&E contracts are being rolled out not just in Openreach, but across the business, in other parts of the business. And like Davie Bowman said, they're also trying to introduce unagreed pay points. Maybe some will be lower than the TM&E starting point, and what's going to go on from there. But the CWU want to fight these challenges. So I say to you, the only way we can win this battle that we're in now to protect our terms and conditions is to stick together. One of the things that some of the engineers out there have said is that about new grid terms. If new grid terms are going to be under attack just as much as any other terms are, the company predominantly, I think, would like to move everyone onto a TM&E contract, and that's going to affect everybody in the way we move forward. So if you're on a new grid term or a TM&E contract, like was said earlier, you have to understand how these things are going to affect you. They're going to affect you now, and they'll affect you in the future. If everyone is moved to a TM&E contract, that 10% on target bonus, you also have to understand, is non-pensionable. So therefore, you are going to lose out now and in the long term and in every other year going forward. We need to challenge all these things going forward. One of the other things that was mentioned in the car park conversations was about personal travel time. Well, all I can say to you at this moment is that personal travel time is at the forefront of the Openreach's team's discussions with the company. They've been ongoing for a couple of years now. It hasn't gone away. It's part of CWU national policy to try and do away with or mitigate personal travel time down to a minimum and not where it sits at the moment. So what we have to understand is this is about fighting for your terms and conditions. Like's been said before, you can't afford not to vote. We are here as CWU members to fight and help you fight to retain what we've got. And what I would say is, like Dave Booker and like one of the other callers, the speakers that's coming on later, we are employees of BT and Openreach. And if there is a strike, we will lose out as much as you. Don't think we're immune from it as union reps, and that we're trying to encourage you to do something that we're not going to do ourselves. That's not the case. So all I'll say now is vote yes, vote for supporting the CWU, give us the strength to go back to the company and challenge them on all the things that they are doing and the way they want to attack your terms and conditions. This is not about just a paid vote. This is about the future of the grades and the fact that we don't want to see people made compulsory redundant, whether that's desk-based people now or field-based people in the future. Now, I'm going to hand over to James Nash in a minute, but first of all, we're going to have a video, and this video is about the women who in the 1970s took a stand with the Ford Motor Company at Dagenham and challenged them on their terms and conditions and the unfair and unjust way that they were being treated. I think it's poignant. I think it was a group of women that made a stand in a time when people had the choice to fight, but they lost out as well. So please watch the video, and then I'll hand over to James Nash. Play the video, please.
We were nervous, but we were determined, and nothing was going to stop us from doing it. I'm Gwen Davis, and I worked for Ford's Motor Company making seats.
I worked for Ford's Motor Company as a sewing machinist.
With the grading system at Ford's, it was A, unskilled, B, semi-skilled, and C was skilled.
They classed us as unskilled, but in their minds, we're skilled.
And of course, men working on skilled work had a much higher rate of pay than we did because we were classed as unskilled.
We'd been putting our claims in every year when the wage claims come in, but they just turned us down.
Fords didn't want to pay women the skilled wage.
They didn't think we was worth it.
We were so fed up with being treated as a second-class citizen. We had the meeting in the car park and we decided we've had enough. If we want to do something about it, we've got to walk out.
We all put our hands up to say we'd strike. We went back to our machines, picked up our bags and walked out. The supervision said, well, where are you all going? Oh,
We were nervous, but we were determined, and nothing was going to stop us from doing it.
we had two runs to the Commons. There was a coach load of us, 52. Just walked up in front of Parliament with our banners.
We had to accept the percentage.
It was disappointing because you didn't get what you wanted, but it was a bit more than what we was getting.
But it took us another 16 to 18 years to get the equal pay with the men that we were working with. The skill grade, that was our fight. The skill grade to be recognised. We didn't expect it to come to that, you know, because it was just for ourselves, really.
I didn't feel proud at the time, but I do feel proud now.
It was so wonderful when it, you know, everybody got it, when all women got it. It was so wonderful.
What would your advice be to women now?
Well, fight for it. If you think you're entitled to it, go for it.
You just got to keep fighting. If you feel that you're not being treated properly, you have got to fight for yourself.
Go for it, girl.
Thanks, Dave, for that video. Like you said, really poignant there. Really glad to be on the Facebook Live this evening. As Dave said, my name's James Nash. I'm the youth officer for Portsmouth, West Sussex, in the Isle of Wight branch. So yeah, I've worked for Openreach for about 8 years now as a multi-skilled service delivery engineer. As Dave mentioned, I am myself on a TMNE2 contract, and he's just enlightened me to something actually that I didn't actually know. You know, the 10% bonus that I work for isn't pensionable. That's ignorance is bliss, I suppose. But yeah, you know, to really emphasise and recognise the importance of the vote for industrial action, I must just iterate to everybody that I do absolutely love my job and I love the people I work with. And I think if there's any of my peers or engineering level members watching tonight who feel the same as I do, you'll understand the significance of having your voice heard going into the future, you know, concerning you, your rights, terms and conditions as an employee. And I really think it is paramount for us as individuals to unite together in solidarity to really just hone in on who and what we are. We are a union. And I think Dave's video of the Dagenham workers at the Ford factory really sort of highlights the precedents the women that worked there set and the movement they achieved, and they did it together. And I hope anyone watching tonight who is maybe uncertain about why we are campaigning or what we are voting for is aware of the difference you can make by voting. I really hope you found out more information about the action we're looking to take, having joined the Facebook Live. And of course, if any member in my branch or any other branch would like further information from me on a personal basis, I'll gladly welcome any questions off the call. So just wanted to touch on, I really do think it's wonderful to see the great new people being brought into Openreach engineering roles and their level of commitment. I totally empathise with those of you who feel that being a new employee can be daunting as far as voting for action is concerned. You know, you probably asked yourself, why would I feel the need to vote for better terms and conditions when my job is great and my pay is good? And I think just to keep it simple, your vote counts for it to stay that way and, you know, to not go on in the future and feel resentment towards the company you've worked for, you know, once you've accrued loads of hard years of work, service and commitment. But being the youth officer for my branch, I can already see the work needed to make younger members aware of why the industrial action is necessary and to sort of help our aims become more transparent to people who aren't entirely sure of what they're voting for. I actually spoke to an individual the other day who hasn't been working for the company as long as sort of I had, and they said, you know, I don't want to upset the apple cart. And while I understood their concern, I had to ask whether they thought the company would worry about upsetting their apple cart with whatever action they planned on taking. And the silence spoke volumes, really. And I think any new employee who is worried about being singled out or frowned upon in voting for action understands this sort of very simple approach. You know, hypothetically, if that were to ever happen, you're more likely to be recognised as someone who voted for action against the company, the less people there are that vote yes. And I'd just like the younger, newer members to think about that, you know, having been their representative. So, but being of a relatively young age myself, I can understand the concerns of fellow members when hearing words such as strike or going unpaid, as you know, just to echo what other people have said already. I think that the speculation and unfamiliarity from members can often lead to others receiving misleading information of what we're actually working towards. And, you know, sadly, in turn, it can mask the true objective of the CWU and its corresponding branches. So, excuse me, just while I have the chance, I'd just like to settle any confusion as to what we're trying to achieve. You know, and previous to now, I've naively asked myself sort of several questions, you know, how will a strike affect me? How will I make so-and-so bill if I lose money because I'm striking? And, you know, everybody's situation is different. You might ask yourself, how might this affect my family? And the simple fact of the matter is that a vote is not necessarily a vote for a worker strike, which I think is really important. And, you know, I'll be honest, I don't particularly want to strike. I'm just going to be honest. I hope it doesn't get to that point, but I'm absolutely prepared to do it. Should you know, if we don't get what we're asking for here, you know, I hope it doesn't get to this point, but the sooner we all unite, understand and show we're together, the less chance of drastic action happening that will actually, you know, affect us in a financially detrimental way. So however much you may be concerned about the loss of a day's pay, think of the larger, wider, sort of significantly worse issue of losing perhaps your current terms and conditions in the future, just because you didn't make your voice heard when you had the chance. So just touching on things that are already going on. Already we're seeing our colleagues in other divisions having to relocate or take redundancy, voluntary or compulsory, which is sort of evidence alone that futures are at risk. And if we don't stand now, what stops the company using the same methods and tactics against us? You know, for those of you who want to progress in the company, I sort of have to ask you, what roles do you think you're going to be able to move into if all of these roles are being slashed with the condensing of offices and hubs? So bring it back up to date. You know, many of you will be aware of the £1,000 bonus the company have recently offered. Of course, it is being issued in your pay, which means it's taxable. So it's already not what it's cracked up to be. And, you know, whilst in the first instance, it's an attractive incentive and may make you feel valued, just try and remember it is in light of a decision not to give us, the workforce, a much deserved pay rise. So to current engineering members, you know, the growing future network will inevitably invalidate the copper that we work on now, and therefore alleviate the demands for its maintenance. And I think the concern for many there is that there will be fewer requirements for engineers to monitor that kind of infrastructure. And whenever it does get to that point, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out who they will and won't be continuing to employ to carry out that work going forward. You know, it could be the guys on the newer contracts, and most likely sort of a third party or contractual. But, you know, having already seen the FTTP engineers on basic contracts with lower pay, less bonuses, it's only really going to get worse if we allow it to. So just to finalise then, as the youth officer, I think that all I can ask of any members that I perhaps represent is just to consider your future. You know, I myself I've regularly fallen victim to the, you know, live for now mentality. And while it's easy to brush union politics and discussions under the carpet, I'd really just strongly urge you to try and compartmentalise the thought of this doesn't concern me now, and really focus on perhaps just educating yourselves on how decisions left to the business could influence later agreements down the line in your own career. You know, if they get away with it now due to us not standing together, where will it go from there? So just to finalise then, vote yes for your terms and conditions, vote yes for your opportunity, but please just vote yes for you and your family's future. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. If I can hand back to Ian.
You're on mute, Ian.
Sorry. Yeah, thanks everybody. Some very powerful and important contributions from everybody. I think they've laid out why we need to stand together, why we need to unite and stay strong. And I think the video about the Dagenham workers was very apt. It showed that working together, everybody standing firm, we can achieve what we want. And so workers united can never be defeated. And providing we stand together, we can win. So with that, I'll just ask if anybody's got any questions they want to ask. They can let us have the questions. Do we have any from anybody? No questions at the moment. Right, there's a question from Meridian Branch. I'm an apprentice within my first year with the company. My manager tells me that it's in my contract that I can't take part in any industrial action while I am on probation period. Is that right? Perhaps Davie, can you deal with that one?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where that information's coming from. Certainly, individuals who are trainees, I'm taking it, as opposed to an apprentice, so the traineeship. I've certainly seen many contracts of employment. I've not seen that in it. But what I will do, I'm not sure who asked the question specifically as an individual, but I will certainly take that away. As a trainee, you've got the same entitlement to what happens within the workplace as anybody else. But yes, there is a probation period. But I am not aware of anything in any BT contract that makes reference to industrial action. So if you don't mind, I will take that one away and I'll come back to you, Ian, with the answer, and you can distribute it accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Next question, can I be disciplined by my manager for taking part in industrial action? Perhaps that's Davie again.
No, you see that this is definitely a myth, and it's the importance of, as everybody has said, all the speakers have said, it's really important that you vote and that you vote yes, but it's also important we meet the legal hurdles, and it's also important that we get a huge turnout and a huge yes. And by us winning that ballot and us carrying it out legally, then as an employee, a recognised trade union, where we have won a statutory legal ballot, then they cannot sack you for taking part in what would be legally constituted industrial action. I mean, we've been dealing, many of you will have seen the dispute we've currently got on with the repayment project engineers. A small group of people started with 170. It's only reduced because some people have retired. But we managed to deliver a ballot result there of 94% turnout and 86% yes. And those members will be taking more strike action next week. It's legally constituted. And no, you cannot be disciplined for taking part in legally called industrial action.
Okay, thanks for that. Next question, are the unions still pushing for a pay rise even though they have been told they will get a so-called bonus in June? I think that's probably you again, Davie.
That's all right, Ian. Yeah, I mean, I think, or I hope I set out earlier, the union's claim is for a consolidated increase that flows through, that's above inflation, and RPI is the measure that we use, that's above inflation, and that obviously flows through to overtime and pensions. If you look at even the documentation that they put out, Jansen put out, it was clear from his documentation that the pay question has not been concluded. It's not been concluded from our point of view, and certainly when Andy Kerr, the DGST, addressed branches earlier this week, he was very clear that that continues to be an objective. So yeah, it's still there.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Right. I have only worked for Openreach for a couple of years. This doesn't affect me, does it? Perhaps Dave Kaufman, perhaps you could deal with that, and as coordinator for Openreach in the South East.
Thank you, Ian. Look, everybody who is a member of the union who is going to be in one of the core companies that are going to be balloted has a right to vote. And we're encouraging all those people to vote yes, because the way the CWU see it is that there are elements within Openreach and BT Group and EE that are taking and pushing actions forward against different groups of people, whether it be consumer, TSO, Openreach. They're pushing forward all the time, trying to challenge the terms and conditions of the people. Now, the team members within Openreach, you might have only been a team member for a couple of years, but your terms and conditions will be under attack. Have no doubt about it. The 10% on target bonus, who's to say that won't be a bonus? You're getting it paid in full at the moment, but there's nothing to say they won't challenge that in the upcoming years coming forward. So if you've only been on 6 months or 6 years, then, you know, or 30 years, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how long you've been on, the company are looking to challenge the terms and conditions of everyone. And if you're a TMNE contract, they're going to challenge that as much as anybody else on any of the other contracts that are in BT Group, EE or Openreach. So yes, it matters to you. Vote yes. Vote when, as soon as the ballot paper comes, make sure it's not going to be electronic, it's going to be a paper ballot, so make sure you open that envelope, tick that box, stick the paper back in envelope and put it in a post box. Make your voice heard, because it will affect you now and in the future. Vote yes.
Okay, thanks. There's a question. What would happen to currently running share save schemes payments during strike? I don't know, Davie, can you answer that one?
I would suspect the company will continue to take the money off your wages, and you will continue to contribute towards the share save. If it's an existing scheme, you know they have stopped the scheme for a period of time, theoretically to pay for the £1,000 bung that's supposed to buy you off having a pay rise. But as far as I'm aware, they would continue to take the money. I mean, I think some of these things, I think Dave's answer there to the question of the individual that's been in 2 years is absolutely excellent and spot on. You know, and when James talked about you know, the impact, he's been in 8 years, and for those individuals who you know, look to the future and look to grow within the company, and Dave talked about, you know, can you afford to strike? You can't afford not to. And what we're saying to you very clearly is that the fight that we have now maintains the legacy that others have left for you to enjoy, and some of you have built because you've been in the company for a number of years. But it allows you to have a voice, and it allows the CWU going forward to ensure that we build on that legacy. You know, that what we do is consolidate that 10% bonus that is within the TMNE environment. What we do is ensure there's no compulsory redundancies. We ensure, as James very rightly highlighted, you know, once somewhere is fibred and there is less requirement for maintenance of that network, what are they going to do with you? And as I said right at the start, if their approach to resource planning is compulsory redundancy, then everything else associated with that, reskill and retraining, pay and pension protection, everything we've fought for disappears. Really, really important that people vote yes. And these issues, share save, other issues are important. Of course they are, and I can understand why people would be concerned about them right now. But what's going to be really important going forward is that as a collective, we deliver a massive yes vote, because the negotiations are continuing. We are still talking to the company to try and resolve these issues at a national level. The discussions haven't stopped. What gives your negotiators more leverage, more clout, more power? It is the company fundamentally believing that you will vote yes in big numbers, because that will focus their attention on the issues that we are raising on your behalf. They don't want the reputational damage, and they don't want the business damage that would be caused by us having to take strike action. But the objective, we may well have to do it, but the objective of a huge turnout, the objective of a big yes vote, is to get the leverage to get the company to listen, but always understanding if the company won't move enough and they won't give us what we need on your behalf and you will determine, and then yes, we would have to take that ultimate step. So some of these issues are important. The wider issue in terms of voting and voting yes and getting that huge turnout is paramount to us making sure that BT, Openreach and EE are brought back to book and start treating you with the respect that you deserve and giving you the voice that is so greatly needed.
Okay, thanks. Any more questions? Question. Everyone assumes that industrial action is a strike. Please could you outline any other forms that this action could take if required? Davie, can you?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, the law is not on our side on this, Mark, in as much as the mechanisms that we would have to go through, as has been outlined, I think, by all speakers in terms of BT Group, Openreach and EE, because they are separate legal entities, we have to meet the threshold in each of those companies. Yeah, so we have to meet the threshold in the group elements, in Openreach and in EE. So, you know, we have to meet the turnout and we have to meet the percentage yes vote. So if you like, that's 6 hurdles. Unfortunately, the reality is the law as it stands at the moment, which is why we took the decision on the repayment project engineers, is that in order to take action short of a strike action, you need to ask one question, and then in order to ask to take strike action, you would have to ask another questions. So instead of having 6 tests, we would have 12 tests to meet across all of the companies. It's just not going to happen. And by not going to happen, I don't believe that is a route that we will take. We will follow the same route that the repayment project engineers took, which is a single question on strike action. If what you do, and Dave mentioned earlier about coming in 89 and wasn't about in 87. I started in 79 and I was branch chair of the Inverness branch during the 87 dispute. And part of the reason that we ended up out on strike was because what we did do was an overtime ban. Individuals were then instructed by their managers to work overtime. They refused, they got suspended, we all came out. You see, in 1987, the rules were a bit different. Not quite as good as they were when the Dagenham workers went out, and you could just go out into the car park and put your hand up. Not as good as that, but they were less stringent than they are now. The problem we would have now is if what we did was ballot for action short of strike action, and then they suspended one of our members and we wanted to support that member as a collective, guess what we'd have to do? We'd have to have another ballot and meet all 6 tests across the 3 companies again. So my belief is that the approach will be strike action, because the reality of the situation is with the law the way it stands at the moment and with the attitude that the company are taking at this point in time, then a massive turnout and a massive yes vote for strike action is what will get them back to the table and get this issue resolved.
Any more questions? Right, looks like we've come to the end of the questions. So I would just ask Davie Bowman to come back and just round up before we close. and thank everybody for their contributions. And there'll be another short video at the end after Davie has wound up the meeting. So, Davie, over to you.
Thanks, Ian. And I mean, I think it's been a fantastic event, and thank you very much for the invite. I think the contributions made by all the speakers have set out very clearly from different perspectives, which is excellent, and in a different way, which is even better, how important it is that we as the CWU win this fight, that you give us your support. It's been said elsewhere, we've got your back, make sure you've got our backs, give us that leverage, give us that big yes vote. It is really important you talk to your colleagues about what you've seen tonight, what you've heard tonight, and about some of the detail. James very honestly talking about the fact the 10% bonus, he wasn't clear that wasn't pensionable. I wonder how many other people out there recognise now that that's the case, but even more important, will go and tell their pals that's what this is about. And I suppose just leave you with one thought and a parallel. And it's a real parallel. And that's what's happening to the British Gas employees, some of whom have been sacked this week for not accepting new terms and conditions. So if you think about what we've been talking about maintaining a legacy and moving forward and building on that legacy and making those terms and conditions better, those individuals have been subject to something that's still currently legal called fire and rehire. And the reality of the situation is, if this company, if BT, Openreach, EE, gets away with an approach that allows them to move to compulsion, to introduce unagreed pay rates, to introduce new terms and conditions, how long is it going to be before somebody somewhere says, well, why don't we do the same as they've done in British Gas? This is about drawing that line. I could also draw a parallel very quickly for the desk people. What they're doing is closing desks, closing locations where we've got C3 higher graded jobs, and they are re-employing people in the new locations on 24 or 29 grand instead of the near 40 that a C3 earns. Now, that's not fire and rehire in the same sense, but it is, because people will be left at this point in time either going out in the field, no PPP, etc., and they're creating jobs somewhere else. And in their wee world is that they're continuing to employ people in desks. They're just employing them on worse terms and conditions. This has been described by some as the fight of our lives. So whether you've been in for a short period, medium or long, this is about the CWU, about you, about us as a collective, having absolute unity and saying to the company, your direction of travel is unacceptable. And whether we're in the field, or whether in desks, whether in consumer and technology and enterprise, it doesn't matter. We are not having it. And what we're going to do is we're going to fight to maintain what we have and fight to have a voice at the table to make that better going forward and leave a legacy for others. So thanks very much for being on the call. Thanks for listening to me and the other speakers. I personally have found it excellent. I think the use of the videos throughout the meeting is good, because it gives that different focus and that different message. And I certainly hope it's made you think about the things that we're fighting for. So thanks very much. It's been a smashing meeting, and from my perspective, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
In the forthcoming ballot, I'll be voting yes.
Hi, I'm Steve Taylor, and I'll be voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
Hi, Chris Power, South East Central Branch. I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm saying yes.
Count me in. I'm definitely voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
Count me in. I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
Damn Skippy, I'm voting yes.
Count me in. I'm voting yes.
You can count me in. I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
Rick Coburn, South East Central, and I'm voting yes.
You can count me in. I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
Count me in. I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
My name is Una McMahon. I'm the Women's Officer for the South East Central
And I'm going to be...
For me, it's a no-brainer. I'll be voting yes.
I'm definitely voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes. I'm voting yes.
Voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
34 years with the company, I will definitely be voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
Count me in. I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
Mersey Branch members will be voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
Count me in, I'm voting yes. You can see from those little clips that you're all backing this campaign. Thank you for your support. Let's just keep it going.